Welcome to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, the podcast that prepares you for one of life's toughest yet inevitable moments, stepping in when your parents need you most. Hosted by Spade, a senior real estate specialist with Keller Williams Realty. We'll dive deep into more than just moving. We're talking smart financial planning, making tough decisions with confidence, and strategies to avoid being caught in crisis mode. Join us for real stories, expert insights, and actionable steps to stay ahead of the curve. Now, here's your host, Spade.
Hey friends, and welcome back to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, the podcast. We talk about real life strategies to help the people we love age with dignity while keeping our own sanity intact. I'm your host, Spade, with Keller Williams Realty. I'm a senior residential relocation specialist. And today I'm sitting down with Brent Wakefield. He is the CEO of Meals on Wheels, San Diego County. He's a third-generation San Diegan with a background in cultural anthropology, and Brent has spent over 20 years in the nonprofit world building programs that strengthen our community. Now, under his leadership, Meals on Wheels is doing so much more than delivering meals. They're doing wellness checks, personalized nutrition, and even pet support. They're also helping seniors stay independent and connected. So let's dive into what they are doing and how they're doing it and what families like yours need to know. Welcome to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad.
Thank you so much, Chris. Great to be here with you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, we are so excited. So let's just dive into a little bit of history on Meals on Wheels. We chatted about this last week. So Meals on Wheels started during World War II in the United Kingdom. And what can you briefly share about that and how that mission evolved and how it took root here in San Diego?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just kind of basic and fundamental. People need to eat. And during World War II, you can imagine London being bombed out, these cities out there being bombed. Some people had many kitchens, and many people didn't have kitchens. So those who did realize, I got to make food for a lot of other people, and I'm going to make food, and anybody who has a set of wheels, it could be a wheelbarrow, it could be a bicycle, it can be a car, come get a bunch of food and go around and distribute it for us. So that was literally, and they called it a Meals on Wheels program. And so this has evolved over decades around the world, and it's really become a U.S. kind of thing, right? And in that it's such a large, structured program in the United States. There are over 5,000 Meals on Wheels programs in our country.
That's awesome.
And it coalesced under they're coalescing under this brand, Meals on Wheels. Sometimes, they have their own brand. It's called whatever, it could be, some kind of community center's name, meal delivery service or Karen's Meals or whatever it is, right? All these nonprofits or churches. But, the one thing that they have in common is typically it's homebound seniors that have difficulty making food on their own. Now, here in San Diego, 65 years ago, it started like it did in many places around the country, in a church where the people of the church, mainly the ladies, realized that some of the people were getting old that were part of their parish or their congregation, and they needed to do something and get food to these people. And so they started cooking it and delivering food. And from there, it just grew over the decades. And now what you have is this sophisticated program here. We're doing 750,000 home-delivered meals a year that are equal to about over 400,000 touches, right? The delivery of the meal itself. And each one of those touches or contact points with the homebound senior is also a safety check, a wellness check, and it's recorded in the app of the senior. And at any given moment, we have about 750 pets that are on our AnnaMeals program. And we're proud that we were the first in the world to develop this program here in San Diego. And it's thanks to the generosity and the hard work of Helen Woodward, back in 1983 or 84. I forget the date. I'm confused on that date. But a volunteer that we had in common always noted that when he delivered food to a client, she would give half of her lunch to her dog. Her little dog would run up to the side of her chair and she'd give half of the lunch. And he's like, this tiny little lady needs to eat the entire meal. So he went back to Helen Woodward. He goes, look, I'm volunteering also for Meals on Wheels. And here's the situation. And this woman shouldn't be giving her food. We can we give animal food? And they said, well, yeah, we can do that. And so they developed this program where they kind of, we onboard the clients and they'll onboard the pet. They want to know the cat or dog's dietary issues. So there are 10 different types of dog food, 6 different types of cat food. They bag it for us, a week's supply. They put the route number, our route number on the bag and our client's name on the bag, and they bring it to us every Monday. And then we distribute it on Tuesdays and Wednesdays throughout the county to our clients who have pets. So we're doing homebound seniors, disabled veterans of any age, and pets.
That's awesome. As far as I know, you're probably the only ones that do that, I think.
Yeah, well, and everybody's trying to copy us now around the country, but nobody has a Helen Woodward. So
Yeah.
when I go and I speak at Meals on Wheels conferences, and they say, well, you guys are the gold standard, so tell me about your program. And then they ask me, so how do you fundraise for that program? I'm like, well, I don't fundraise. Helen Woodward donates this to us. It's 100% free. They can't believe this.
Yeah.
So, and then they had a very generous donor during the pandemic who realized that our clients not only had the barrier of providing pet food, but many of our low-income clients can't afford vet care. So Helen Woodward, got a donor. She gave immediately $250,000 so they could have a roving vet clinic. And so
Yeah, I read
our
that.
clients their cats and dogs get free checkups, but even free surgeries.
Oh,
And they go
wow.
around the county, they pick different times of the year, different and our volunteers will bring the client's pets to the mobile vet clinic and they get treated for free. So yet another unbelievable resource to our clients who oftentimes our volunteers the only person they see and their main contact is their furry friend. So it's a really great program.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, when I read that, I was like, that just I mean, you guys do good anyway, right? But the fact that you guys are teaming up and, Helen Woodward, I think, has a special place. Well, I think San Diego in general with animals has a special place because we are a no-kill county and, everybody loves animals. So I think that that's awesome.
Yeah, we feel really privileged, and it's just a feel good program. The clients love it. The volunteers, because we are using 150 volunteers every day. I have 90 colleagues. We're at 90 employees and 150 different volunteers a day delivering to our clients throughout the county. So about 90% of our meals are delivered by our volunteers. And by the way, most of those volunteers, 70% are retired themselves. So gives them a sense of purpose. They're seniors helping seniors. So they deliver that meal and also the pet meal if that client has a pet. And they love that. They love the connection. They love the conversation,
That's
but they
his.
also dig the furry friend connection too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So can you just walk us through how a senior becomes a client and, what's the process from sign up to meal delivery? What's that look like?
Yeah. It's pretty easy. So first of all, the client, and this is the strength of the brand, right? So oftentimes the client themselves thinks, gosh, I can't cook anymore. This is tough. Meals on Wheels. I mean, it's one of those brands that's like Coca-Cola. People know that it exists. So they can ask, they can call any number and how do I get a hold of Meals on Wheels? Oftentimes it's the referral of, it can be a neighbor or the kids, family member saying, hey, mom, like I'm not there to check on you every day. I live in another state or Northern California, whatever. Let's have Meals on Wheels deliver that meal to you every day. I know they're going to do a wellness check. I'm the emergency contact if you need anything, right? So you have everybody referring the client. And then we also have other programs that refer us. We refer back and forth to programs in San Diego like Serving Seniors, Jewish Family Services, Catholic Charities, right? So we kind of all refer back and forth to one another. But typically, because we do beaches to Borrego, Camp Pendleton, all the way to the border, we're covering territories that other programs don't cover. We're the only ones that have such a vast territory. So they'll refer to us, and even 211, which is our community information exchange here in San Diego, right? That number that you call 211 on your phone, and you
Mhm.
speak to somebody and you can ask them anything. You say, please give me the number to Meals on Wheels, or I need a meal. What should I do? And they would refer you to Meals on Wheels. Um, and also the number, if anybody is interested, the phone number, it's 1-800 and then the number 5 and the word senior. And you can call us and you can do it over the phone or online as well. You can sign up for meals. But there'll always be an interview, a phone process. And in that process, and it's an easy conversation, takes maybe 20 minutes at most. But we want to know something about you, your health, your nutrition requirements. Some of our clients have very specific dietary restrictions. Like if they're in stage 1 kidney failure, we have a renal diet that can address that issue. All of our meals are low in sodium and sugar, so they address probably 85% of the medically tailored meal requirements of low sodium, low sugar, and all of that stuff. And then they all follow senior nutrition guidelines that are federally established for seniors. And so you're getting the nutrients that you need and the calories that you need for that meal. So we do lunch and entree. Some people only want a lunch, some people only want an entree. And you can also choose, do I want this delivered daily? Now, we don't deliver on Sundays, right?
Okay.
We deliver Sunday's meals on Saturday. So
Cool.
Saturday, you'll get Saturday and Sunday. But if you want daily delivery, you can do that. Or sometimes if you're in a very remote area and it would take us 2 hours to get to your house, we can get you a pack of 7 days once a week.
Oh,
But
okay.
most people like the 3 or 5 day delivery. And if it were for the family members want them to have every day, that 6-day delivery, so there's eyes on. But you get to kind of decide what it looks like.
That's awesome. So, yeah, you kind of touched on the dietary restrictions. Like, how many different chefs do you have working for you that are preparing all these different meals? Because if like you said, you've got someone in kidney disease or kidney failure or whatever, it's different from somebody who's, doesn't have any of those issues. Like what does that look like? How many kitchens you got going?
Right. So we have one kitchen right now where we produce, let's say, probably 95% of our meals. But when there are meals outside of what we produce, and our kitchen, by the way, recently was taken over, managed by Trio Community Meals. And the reason we went with Trio, they have over 90 commercial kitchens around the country, is they're doing close to 250 million meals a year. So their buying power, their knowledge of the industry, and all of their dietitians that work for them. And then they have a master chef. He's one of 67 in the country. His name is Chef Mario Reyes. He designs the meals, the flavor profiles, and all of that. And so if there is something that we don't produce here in-house, like gluten-free, right? Because you can do a gluten-friendly, but a gluten-free requires a separate kitchen and all of that because of the
Cross
kind of
contamination.
micro level of contaminants. They produce it somewhere, and then they just drop ship it to us express. So 95% is done here, and then there'll be that 5% that we get drop shipped to us from one of their kitchens, likely here in California.
That's awesome. So, let's talk a little bit because you had mentioned this briefly. So, how do you balance that nutritional support with emotional well-being and social connection? Because you talked about how if the kids live in a different state or Northern California, let's say, how does that work out?
Yeah, one of our kind of mantras is, the more than a meal aspect of our job. And we say that all the time, more than a meal. We're so much more than a meal because we address nutrition and security, but we're also isolation interruption. So we show up at the doorstep, or a volunteer shows up at the doorstep, and they're following their app. So they've downloaded the app, the Meals on Wheels app, and they're saying, okay, now, you've delivered to Mr. Smith. Yes. He got his chicken dinner with his fruit and his, juice. Yes, delivered. And then the next question the app asks you is, did you notice a change of condition? And you have to say yes or no. Nope, I didn't notice any change of condition. He presented like he always does. I see him once a week and he seemed normal. So no. Or, yeah, something's off. So yes, change of condition. And then it'll ask you what it is. There are about 8 different things to choose from, or note section. You could say, he was complaining that his hearing aids no longer work. He can't hear well enough to make the phone call to get an appointment with his doctor. So he needs somebody to do that for him. So all of that is entered in the app. And as soon as they hit enter to get the address of the next client, it goes back to our care navigation team. And our care navigation team reads that and goes, oh, and then they, get ready. And if it's an emergency, they'll call the client and then the client's emergency contact, and even 911 if the volunteer hasn't done it. But if it's something like scheduling a doctor's appointment because he can't hear, then they realize, I got to go there, sit with them and schedule the appointment with them and write it all down, right? And so these are the types of things that we do every single day. And what's important to note too, one of the more than a meal aspects that I think is most critical is actually that the fact that we're coming there frequently. And it happens several times a month in the county, even more than that, that a client has fallen and has been on the floor since the last time somebody came to the door. It can be 24 hours if it was right after their last Meals on Wheels delivery, or it could be even longer, right? So when you get the daily delivery, at least you know somebody's coming and you're on the floor. And so oftentimes our volunteers, they knock, and if the client doesn't respond and they know they're supposed to be there, then they call the client's number because it's up in their app. And if the client doesn't respond then they'll call us and let us know, and then we try to reach the client, and then if we can't get a hold of anybody, then we send somebody to do a wellness check, right? So that would be the police or the sheriff. But, sometimes what happens, at least once a week, what happens is a volunteer hears a help, help, and it's a cry for help, right? Because they've fallen, I'm fallen. And so they right away make sure, they go to a window if they can see in or whatever, and then they'll call 911 and make sure that somebody gets in there. And it's nonstop that this happens because we're working with people that are 60 to actually we have a client that's turning 108. I think it's next week.
Wow.
Yeah. We have I think we have 15 clients that are above 100. But
Oh, wow.
most of our clients fall in that kind of 75 to like 85 range, right?
Uh,
And there are a lot of issues, and mobility being one of the more common issues that they have. Falling isn't uncommon. Um, so, it's really important if they don't have that alert hanging around their neck. It's really important that they have somebody coming in and checking on them regularly. So that's a really critical part of the more than a meal piece. But mostly what they want, and we have the crotchety ones that give me my damn meal and get out of here. You can imagine. But most of them, they want to stay there and hang out and chat. And so what happens is the volunteers will rearrange their route and they'll put their favorite client at the end so they can talk to them for 25 minutes if they want. They've given everybody their meal and they want to hang out and chat. But it's that nice kind of 5-minute exchange. How's it going? What's going on? And that's what they want. And that's the connection also that they need. I think, when you're moving mom and downsizing dad, I think one of the things that you understand at that stage of life is this person went from being connected to so many people, so relevant, having a role because of work, having a role in their family, to not having a role anymore, kind of set adrift, that they need contact. They need people in their lives because they're not getting it through these other outlets that they used to have. Those are no longer available to them. So, that's one of the things that we can provide, and it's short. Now, we also have companionship call programs and things. Sometimes, clients like, oh, what I'd like to have, a conversation twice a week for 30 minutes with somebody just to chat, right? So
was there?
we can help set those kinds of things up. We run programs. We work with other people that run those programs as well, because that's an important piece, that social interaction beyond the meal. And sometimes they want more than just the chat with the volunteer.
Can you think of an example of where, a volunteer is out on their daily route and there was some sort of crisis like that really made a difference in the person that they were visiting? Is there one that comes off the top of your head?
Yeah, because we just visited him recently and we kind of featured his story. He featured his story. His name is Donnell. At our gala, and he's been in San Diego. I think he's a second or third generation San Diegan as well. And he started getting Meals on Wheels, and he likes the chat, the connection. He's quite a character. He's fun to talk to, and he's got great stories. And he really knows the history of San Diego, all the players, the history of the sports team, and everything. So he's just a very engaged and connected person. And he loved when the volunteers would come and he could tell them part of his story and everything, that connection. Well, one time a volunteer came and delivered his meal, and they said, well, how are you feeling today, Donnell? And this was a volunteer this was his first time volunteering with Donnell. He says, oh, thank you for asking. Pretty good. He goes, my arm is a little weird. It's kind of tingly. But he was like, but I think I'm okay. I was like, fine. And he kind of wrote it off himself. And this is his story, his account. And the volunteer kind of walked into the driveway and he saw him standing there making a phone call. And then he turns around and he says, I think you could be having a medical emergency and we're calling somebody here to come check on you right away. Ambulance came, he was taken away on the ambulance. And he said when he was hooked up to all these things in the hospital, the nurse told him, you are very lucky you're in here. Had you waited an hour or two more, you would have had a severe stroke and this would not have ended well for you. So this was a very life-saving thing, right? So he's super grateful, right? It wasn't just, I get to chat with the volunteer. The volunteer's like, if you're telling me your arm's tingling and you seem like a little off, and even though I haven't seen you before, but even with that data that volunteer knew, I think we need to have professionals come check them out. And so that's the typical, that's a Meals on Wheels story. And this happens all over the country every day. And we are Meals on Wheels San Diego County, and this is what we deal with in our county. Now we're really looking at people typically, if I want to dive in and find who's at risk for nutrition insecurity. In San Diego County, it's somebody that's making twice as much as the federal poverty level. So the federal poverty level says $15,000 a year. Well, you can imagine in San Diego, that's not even going to pay your rent. So if you're making $32,000 a year minimum, we think you're at risk for nutrition insecurity because after your rent, you're likely only going to have less than $8,000 left for all your food, all your medication, transportation, and all your other expenses, right? So in San Diego County, there are over 180,000 seniors that are in that predicament. And we're just serving about 2,500 at any given moment. So there are quite a few people out there that there's a big meal gap. And so we're working with the San Diego Hunger Coalition. We've identified the zip codes around San Diego where there's a bigger gap in service to these people. And we try to proactively do outreach when we have the bandwidth. So now our objective over the next few years is to go from 750,000 home delivered meals a year to 2 million home delivered meals in the next 3 to 5 years. That's our objective. So we can really more realistically address this meal gap that is out there. So that's required a big push on our behalf to make that growth happen because we want everybody to have that Donnell experience. If they're home and they're alone, somebody there is going to see them that day and can help them evaluate if they need it. Because in life, we need eyes on us, right? Even if we're antisocial, I might have an antisocial day, but the older you get, you need eyes on you. So
yeah. And that's a good goal too, to get up to 2 million. That's a big goal. And that's a goal.
We're going to do it, darn it. And I like to tell people, we've been in San Diego for 65 years, serving our community. Any of the funds that have come to us, federal funds, donations from foundations, are spent in the community on seniors in the community and pay staff that lives and works in the community. So, the funding support comes from the community and stays in the community, and it's bolstering and supporting these very vulnerable seniors and veterans.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, how is it, that you connect clients to other resources like home modifications, healthcare, social services? I mean, I have a pretty good idea how you do it because I've talked to a few people. We know some of the same people.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there are some great senior programs in San Diego County. So, it's interesting. The board said to me years ago, God, our clients homebound, we need to develop a transportation program. I said, well, listen, there are people that have been doing this, like ElderHelp of San Diego. They've been doing it for decades. So instead of us creating this redundant service, let's partner with somebody that's been doing it for decades, has long since worked out the kinks, and knows what the most efficient way of doing this is. And so you create partnerships and you make these referrals and warm handoffs, right?
Mhm.
So interestingly enough, when we built our new kitchen and senior innovation hub where I am right now in Kearny Mesa, I built this place with having ElderHelp of San Diego in mind to move in here. So we actually brought them in on the design phase. They needed an area for pantry specific. We wanted their care coordination team, which is long-term case management, sitting next to, with no division, no walls, our care navigation team, which is more short-term. So they're long-term care management. We're kind of short-term addressing issues. So we can start creating those really seamless, warm handoffs. And in addition to that program, which is housed here, we just have long-standing relationships. For example, Feeding San Diego. They are clients who are not getting CalFresh, which is the food stamp program, um, and are entitled to it. They enroll our clients into that program for us, which is terrific, and they've been doing
Oh,
it
that's
for a while.
cool.
Yeah. ElderHelp, again, who's here, they do things like they install grab bars, safety bars in the house. They can do a home inspection. And so now what we're discovering too is we have volunteers that want to do more than just deliver a meal. We have volunteers that might want to do the transportation thing or install those safety bars. ElderHelp has some volunteers that would love to deliver prepared meals to homebound people. So we can start sharing volunteers. I mean, we've got such a large volunteer pool, Meals on Wheels, San Diego, and we think that by offering them more ways to engage with seniors where they want to, um, we're going to even be able to attract more volunteers. Instead of spreading our volunteers thin, it's going to attract more in. And then gives ElderHelp's volunteers also opportunities to do more things. And so it's kind of a win-win situation. So we're developing this. We've got some funding from a foundation. We're working on the specific volunteer partnership right now. But that kind of stuff I think is really key to sharing the resources. San Diego is very rich. What's interesting, when you go around the state, uh, people say, "Oh, you're at conferences with senior service providers. Oh, you're in San Diego. You guys are so far ahead. You're so good at collaboration." And it's true. We're really good at collaboration here. And then our county office that manages the funding, like the senior nutrition funding and all these other program funding too, the federal dollars and state dollars, it's called AIS, Aging and Independent Services. There are 33 of these in California. Ours in San Diego is known to be like the best, the most innovative, and they're wonderful collaborative partners. We can have really harebrained ideas, and they're totally into it. They like innovation, and they're a government agency. So contrary to what people think, right? When you kind of, if you have
Sounds
a
like
chainsaw, you go, I'm gonna hack this off, right? And you're under the influence of narcotics, you might think it's a good idea to lop off these offices. There are very hardworking, innovative government programs that are knocking it out of the park and setting kind of the standard in the industry. And California is good at that, and San Diego is actually the best of the best. So we feel really fortunate to have so many great innovative players here in the field in San Diego and trying to build something that is really going to be what seniors need, right? I think everybody's trying to understand. I mean, I'm only 55, but I'm thinking, what is retirement going to look like for me? Like, what am I going to do? So I don't have kids. Who's going to take care of me? Or what happens if I need something, right?
Yep.
Um, and you try to kind of play this out. Well, okay, then I'm going to stop working, but I'm going to do something that's relevant. I'm going to have, I don't know, I'm going to be part of different boards. I'm going to be connected in society. I'm going to have a role. I'm still going to have a role because I saw, and you probably have seen these people when they stop working, the old idea of retirement was, well, I'm going to float in a state of suspended animation over a golf course with a martini, and somehow I'm not going to have a freaking existential crisis. And you
Yeah.
know what? Everyone has an existential
Yeah.
crisis when they do that because they don't have a role anymore, right? So we've got to work, I think, not just dealing with the seniors of today right now, but much earlier in that. Like, what are the health habits that you have when you're young so that you can age successfully? But also when you're getting into your middle years, like we are, Chris, is what do I need to be doing now to prepare myself to be this connected, socially connected person that has the resources that's going to get me to where I need to be so I can successfully age in place. And successful aging is really what it's about.
Yeah, my grandma is always kind of my example because my grandfather passed when I was 13, so that was 87.
Mm.
And I remember, she was retired, and she just kept volunteering. She volunteered at the hospital, and one day a week she was working in the snack bar. The next day she was delivering the flowers that were sent to all the patients in their rooms, and then she would volunteer at the nature center and get out of the house. And she did that for years. And, my grandma lived till she was 97. And that was
That
that
was
was,
it.
yeah. And so, and she didn't really I use that word slow down until she was probably 95. And that was because I feel she just kept going. Like I told my financial planner, I will not be a Price is Right retiree, right? I'm not going to sit around and watch the Price is Right all the time. I'm going to have to go still do something, whether it's volunteer work or a little part-time job or whatever. I need to do something.
We all need to do something. And so, we have this great volunteer force. Like I said, of the 3,500 active volunteers that we have here at Meals on Wheels, 70% are retired. So that's the same size population that we're serving, like about 2,500 or so are seniors. So we've got seniors serving seniors, but they say, I get more out of this than the client that I'm delivering the meal to because this is my route. I know that every Tuesday I'm going to do this thing. It kind of gives me a sense of purpose. And I think that that's really important for all of us, that staying
Yeah.
connected. And I agree. I mean, my grandparents raised me. They were extremely connected, had a lot going on, socially very active, had things to do, places to be all the time, and that mattered, and that, they both lived to be in their 90s as well.
Yeah, I think that's really, really, really important. What does the volunteer process look like? If somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I want to volunteer," what do they go through?
Yeah.
I'm
It's
assuming there's a good training.
Yeah, there is a good training, and it's really, you can do an online training that's about 30 minutes. 30 minutes, a little bit more than that. You go get fingerprinted because obviously
Mhm.
we don't want somebody who's convicted of elder abuse or
Yes,
transporting drugs to be out
yes,
delivering meals to seniors, right? So we
makes
we
sense.
do we do make sure that our seniors are safe.
Background checks.
So you have that background check, and it's a pretty quick volunteer program, and then they just get you set up. And so when you go to a drop site, so this is okay. This is, I guess, what people don't quite understand. So where do I get the food if I'm a volunteer? So we have this kitchen here in Kearney Mesa, and we send the food out in these like coolers to 30 different drop sites around the county. It
Okay.
might be in the parking lot of a YMCA or a church or something like that. And the volunteer goes on that drop site, which is closest to where their route is going to be. And you might have 4 to 10 volunteers descending upon that one drop site. And they pick up their coolers and they kind of make sure everything is in there. And then they go and they deliver to their 6 to probably 13 clients or so. And that's how they do it, right? And the app takes them through the whole thing. So you can go to San Diego mealsonwheels.org and sign up online. And we were worried. This is what I think really telling about underestimating the generosity of your volunteers. We were thought, well, when our government contract, our county contract gets big, it's going to be really hard for us to always have those meals delivered by volunteers as well, because it takes special training. There's several hours of things that you go through, and reporting is a little bit more complex. There's just a few more steps, and that's gonna weed them out. Not at all. As soon as we started growing that program, we went from $100,000 a year contract to a $1.2 million a year contract with the county in well overnight, but we did that growth in less than 7 months because our volunteers are, although I'm totally game. If those people are needier, they are homebound, they can't afford food, whatever. I'd rather serve people who need us more. So yeah, sign me up for the hard route.
That's
And
awesome.
and we don't have an issue that way. It's just because the volunteers are like, "No, if I'm doing this, I wanna help people that really need my help, so sign me up for that county route." So, what we thought was gonna be a barrier to these volunteers, actually wasn't. So this was us underestimating their generosity.
Well, I feel like you've just dropped all these nuggets with us right now, and it's this.
Uh-oh, are you drinking from a fire hose, Chris? My apologies.
Yes. Yes, yes. I mean, like, everything is just like just it's all when I first thought of, Meals on Meals, it didn't dawn on me the extent of everything that you do for the community and really helping people. And this is the thing that I wanted to get across to people is I started this podcast out of crisis. I was in crisis mode with a friend of mine, and I ended up, you go to the Google machine and you have to find answers to everything really quickly, right? And that's why I was like, there's people out there that don't have the answers. And quite honestly, they were, they didn't have the ability to make food for themselves, right? And so finding resources like that and people coming into our space as I was helping them, they were like, "Oh yeah, there's all these resources and you can get free food," and none of this dawned on me because if I need food, I go to Vaughn's, right? It's not then, but, and the older we get, we slow down. It's going to happen. For as active as we are, we're still going to slow down at some point, right? So I just didn't realize everything that you all did. Is there anything that you want to tell us that I didn't ask you?
I think it's really important to note the struggles right now that we're going through as a country when we're looking at what deserves funding and what doesn't, right? It seems like, what has merit and what doesn't have merit.
Mhm.
To remember that a lot of the services that fall under that Medicaid umbrella are exactly these types of services. Now, they've preserved the Meals on Wheels bucket specifically, but our clients aren't just relying on our food delivery, et cetera. They're relying on maybe the house cleaning to come in once, and that's funded through Medicaid
Yep.
dollars, right? These other wraparound services that our clients need are being funded by this. So it's not just food, and we can't do all of those things.
Definitely.
Um, so I think to understand the importance of these programs and what they're doing, and they're doing it, you're saving money in the long run. You're addressing critical needs. You're helping homebound seniors age successfully in place, so they spend less time in the hospital, which in turn is less of a financial burden on our system. So these are
Yes.
really good dollars to invest. You save a lot of money down the road when you invest in these dollars. And then another thing is that a meal delivered to somebody, if you do it like we do, where there are these wraparound services, this more than a meal stuff happening, you've got people working, you've got these care navigation teams that are kind of like social workers, you've got people administering kind of the back end of all these things. This meal, the food, maybe the hard cost and out the door kind of thing might be more around $8, but
Okay.
with all these other services, it's a $15 meal, $15 meal. And nobody is reimbursing us for more than about $7.15 a meal. So I am subsidizing a minimum of 50% of every meal through fundraising. Um, and there's only so much fundraising that you can do, right?
Mm.
But because of our partnerships, et cetera, we get a dollar from the government and we stretch that dollar 3 times further than it would go if it were just giving it directly to a senior themselves, right? Because we're able to do all these other things and fundraise, right? So nonprofits that do this type of work, they're taking this money from the government, they're combining all these other resources, and they're multiplying that money by 3 by the impact that it's having. So just, I want people to realize that, and that investment, we need to continue to invest in these areas. It's critical because I think you judge a society, a culture, a civilization, in air quotes here, by how they treat and how they care for their most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Um, and this population that I say is most vulnerable, seniors, uh, it's growing rapidly. Last year was peak 65. So in 2024, in no time in human history, in the past or in our future, this is an interesting thing from a demographic standpoint, will more people turn 65 a day. Last year, 11,200 people in our country were turning 65.
And every
So you
day.
fast forward 10 years from now, all those people are going to be 75. And then this year, we're still over 10,000 people a day. So we're still in this, it's the baby boomers, right? That giant. And so if you don't prepare for that, you know, and I like to say, I'm trying to flip the narrative here, and you can help me, Chris, with your fun podcast. We say silver tsunami. Well, tsunamis kill people and you dread them, right? It just
Yes.
feels horrible. So like, I'm dreading that all these people are aging. No, that's a buzzkill. Why
Yeah.
don't we call it the silver soiree, right?
Ooh, I
And
love it.
right. And
And you start dancing.
any good soiree is a disaster if you don't prepare for it. But it's a soiree, it's a party. So let's call it a silver soiree. Let's get ready for what's coming. And so part of that is investment, part of that is being wise, creating good partnerships, being innovative, and knowing that there's going to be a heck of a lot more of us silver folks out there in the
Mhm.
next few years, and we got to get ready. and
Yeah, because it's
we're
gonna
not
be
ready. We're under-resourced, but we're trying really
yeah,
hard.
yeah, because it's gonna be the us Gen Xers next.
Yep, that's right.
We're getting
And
it.
we're not low maintenance.
No, no, we are not.
No,
Well,
we are not. I can say my grandparents were super stoic and like, "Oh, yeah, I'll eat meatloaf every day of the week." Yeah, mm-mm. Oh, we
no,
don't do that.
no, we can't. According to my doctor, no, we cannot do this. That is if I wanna stay off medication. If
Yeah,
it's
exactly, right? Well, that's the goal too, right?
yeah,
Or, choose your medications, right? Pick
right.
choose them
Choose
wisely. My
choose
father-in-law tells me, he says, to have a successful life, Brent, there's one thing you have to do, and it's really important. The first most important thing to do in life to be successful and to age successfully is to choose your parents wisely. So, I don't know, did you choose your parents wisely? Because I didn't have much choice.
no, 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 I did not. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll just leave it at that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I truly, truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. This was a lot of fun. And, Meals on Wheels is a great resource in San Diego. So, anybody out there, you can go to san diego mealsonwheels.org. And we are a phone call away or an email away to being able to help you or some senior that you care for.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap, everyone, for today's conversation with Brent Wakefield from Meals on Wheels, San Diego County. I hope you are walking away with a better understanding of how powerful something as simple as a meal and a knock on the front door can be in supporting our aging loved ones. Now, if you or someone you know could benefit from Meals on Wheels, or you're looking for ways to get involved, be sure to check out the links in the show notes. And if you're navigating a journey of helping a parent or a loved one downsize and stay independent, don't forget, you're not alone. I am here to help you out. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. I'll see you on the next one.